2020 at 4:46 p.m. Roll call. Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Block will be coming. Mr. Mandrick?
Present.
Mr. Turner? Board Member Turner? You're present.
Here.
Thank you. Campbell, Board President, present. Superintendent Cindy Peterson, present. Cabinet members, all present, and administrative staff. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And now, board members, I do have an agenda addendum number 1, and it is under business, and it is having to do with business item 8.3, over $30,000 professional development service. I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda addendum number 1. Show of hands, please.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Mandrick.
Mr. Anderson moved and Mr. Mandrick seconded.
Okay, thank you very much. I missed that. All in favor of agenda addendum number 1, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Block still absent. Mr. Mandrick?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Campbell, yes. So the item does pass unanimously. And now, do we have public comments?
Madam President, there is no public comments tonight.
There are no public comments. Okay, excellent. And now superintendent's update. We will have superintendent's update, Dr. Peterson.
Yes, ma'am. So just a few things. And I am reading off my phone, so don't think I'm being rude to look at my notes here. Just a few updates. We've been doing a lot, obviously, around planning for next school year and monitoring COVID-19 and all the information being presented. We have been in all types of webinars and information and been reading information. We've been given guidance from SCOE and CDE, as well as others that we've previously discussed with you, including the Department of Health. The planning for next school year is underway at every site. We've developed some spreadsheets to work at each site in terms of health and safety items, as well as their instructional items and how to plan for a bit of the unknown for the fall. We are all keeping our eyes, ears, and brains open, sharing information with one another as it becomes available. We've had a webinar with Access Superintendents Council, where a lot of this was shared along with some of the governor's budget and legislative issues that were brought forth. The hardest thing right now is that we're all paying attention to everything, reading everything, sharing everything, and none of it agrees, just so that we know. And every superintendent on the Access Superintendents call and in the FCMAT board meeting similarly struggling along with us. So we are in good company in our chaos and confusion and making the best we can out of a bad situation. We continue to have meaningful and deep discussions with our principals and cabinet. Particularly, we have gone through all of our, most of our evaluations. All of our principal evaluations were done this last week. We are now doing cabinet evaluations and director level evaluations and having a lot of deep, meaningful conversations about growth and goal setting and how to bring the best we can to our roles in the GCC. Jason and myself and some input from a variety of other people have been working on the blueprint for excellence for next year. We've done some really deep work, shared some of it, and had some input from the principals on this in terms of just reshaping some of our language around being a learner-centered organization and how our core commitments and goals will support that work in the coming year. We look forward to sharing that with you, hopefully in July. Also, we finished our last session with Hanover Research. You'll remember that we've started in the spring some deep work around equity that we plan to continue in the long term. It was very timely in light of some of the current situation that the world has been facing. And we've had 46 participants from across our school sites across 3 different sessions with Hanover, where we really dealt with some good topics around equity and inclusion and diversity. And we looked at data and began to talk about how to set goals around stratified data that includes equity. We also had a task force of school administrators, voluntary task force of 6 school administrators who worked together with us to review the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy and strategic plan that we had previously brought to you. So tonight, they are on your agenda in their final form. We look forward to having those be approved. Very excited for the excellence that was added by our task force and our site-based staff to those documents. Very rich, deep conversations about words, the power of words, and how they shape your outcomes. Also, would share with you that we had our final principals meeting of the year. And in most years, we'd all be exhausted, and that final meeting would be a lot of hugs and some eating of food together and some fellowship, if you will, and some recognizing that they were all going to get to go away and have some form of vacation and holiday. It wasn't quite like that this year. We had our last call on Zoom and talked about what we're facing, what's important. Did reiterate the need for them to take care of themselves, but really right now, all of us are in a world where there's very little room to let go and relax, because every day something new is coming forward and there is a lot to plan in the fall, but the principals are doing an excellent job living within the discomfort of not knowing everything there is to know. Today, Cabinet began the tough work of planning for the admin retreat, which is currently scheduled for July 27th, 28th, and 29th. We do believe we will need 3 full days, because we do believe we'll need 1 full day just around the structuring academically and for safety at our sites in the fall. So a lot going on as always, Madam President and Board, but very, very excited to be doing the work we're doing with the team that we have, because we have an excellent team that is really committed to the success of our students. So.
Great report. Board members, do you have comments, questions, or anything that you would like to speak with the superintendent about? Seeing none, again, thank you. You did mention planning. Are you planning virtual, online, and in-house, or just one area of planning for the new school year, Dr. Peterson?
I will address all that under our study session item, Madam President.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so seeing no other hands or no other questions, we will move to our study session item, facilities update, and that is Mr. Jerry Little, or you will bring him in, Madam Superintendent? Jerry
Little is here. He has been tasked with sharing some of you. You know, a lot generally goes on with facilities in the summer. It's a little different kind of feel right now, but we do have some major projects we're working on. So definitely want to affirm Jerry, and I know that he's going to share with you, and he has some pictures to share as well. And then he will answer questions on any of these. So Jerry, you go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, board and superintendent. We'll go through these. I don't know who's in charge of the page here, or if I can do it. Can I do it? Can I change the, oh, there we go. Whoever did, thank you. Okay, this is a COA middle school. As some of you know, we were doing some improvements in the classrooms there. They had some pretty old carpet and flooring in there. We replaced that. We painted every room. You can see the two-tone there where we got this, it looks pretty dark gray there, but it's actually kind of a dark blue that we put there and underneath the windows along the side. And it's got all new LVT flooring, which will be really nice and has quite the lifespan with it, and it should help out with maintenance as we go further down the road. But you can see the classrooms there. If you've seen the middle school before in the G wing, what the rooms look like and what they are here in the picture, they look quite a bit better, and the students should be excited when they come back. They also are getting an intercom system, a new intercom system that's similar to the one that's over at Futures and HLA at the new campus we just built. So Quality Sound actually started today installing the speakers and getting that all up and ready to go too. So that's what's going on at the middle school. Want to do the next slide. Epic out in West Sac, you guys approved for the turf project to go in that kind of the greenbelt area that was there for many years. The progress has started on that. They've pouring the last little bit of concrete today and I think tomorrow too. And then they'll start putting the gravel and everything down to get the turf in. Then they'll come back and put the fence up as well. So that project is moving along pretty well. Should be ready for the start of school with plenty of time on that. So we're also putting a water fountain out there near the playground too during this project, so the students have some water outside. Next slide. San Juan Unified has been doing a lot of the modernization at GIS, so we want to put a couple of pictures in there. The bathroom there on the left, you can see how it's all nice and new. They've had some pretty bad restrooms facilities there before that were kind of outdated. The classrooms have all new carpet. Windows have been upgraded and replaced. New paint. The third picture over there is the multi-purpose room. Working on doing the flooring, a lot of upgrades in there as well as in the kitchen as well. And then outdoor over there, on the kindergarten area, you can see where they've done some extra striping and some play areas for the kids on the kindergarten side. They installed some equipment and everything in that little courtyard too. So it's coming along pretty good. They're actually looking at moving back into the main office because the office has been upgraded as well and modernized. So they are doing some work pretty much in every room over there and getting new HVAC in the gymnasium and everything, or in the multi-purpose room. Next slide. Higher Learning Academy. We don't have any buildings to show out there yet. They are working on that. Will be back out next week to do the trenching, to get the foundations and footings poured. Having a little issue with that with the sleds for the underneath the buildings that are coming out of Mexico. They're being held up right now, but we are continuing to move forward with that. We've got DSA approval now. The DSA inspector has given us authority to go ahead and start digging. And we've gone up, we did a lot of work up to this point to get all the underground in, but we went as far as we could before DSA wants us to have full approval before we move forward. So we have that now. We are back on track. It's going to be a really tight schedule. So we'll see if we can get it all done before school starts. Next slide. Some other projects we have going around. As Dr. Peterson mentioned, we're working really tightly with the COVID-19 requirements that will be coming up, ordering sneeze guards for the reception counters, extra sanitation areas, some portable units to go in the lobbies, and more wall-mounted units around classrooms and other common areas. Looking at other products as well. As you know, it's an ever-changing thing. What can happen this week could change next week. So I'm trying to stay on top of it as much as we can to get planning so we have everything to move forward with when school come back in session. COA Elementary, the shade structure, that's on its second round of plan check comments now. We submitted the plans, they kicked it back with some comments, got those answered and resubmitted those. So waiting to get the permit on that so we can get moving forward. Rafferty B, the HVAC replacement, that's what McClellan's doing. They're working on all that. They started that kind of at the beginning of June, right at the end of May, with with school not being in session, we're able to get a little jump start on a lot of these projects that, would normally be impacted with a short schedule. We're able to kind of get a little bit more time on these. So that one is moving forward just fine. They pretty much completed the demo and are starting to add the new equipment in. They also, COA Elementary School through their LCAP is putting another electronic sign out. This one's going to go on the corner of James and Dudley as you're coming in. McClellan's design department has looked at it and wanted us to do a couple of changes from what we were originally doing because they got some housing across the street with those dorms and they don't want a bright light shining all night. So we have to do some adjustments on that and lower it down and things, but we're working on that. The offices that we're building in the business services side of our central office are complete. We were able to start that early too, when we all were sent to shelter in place or at home. Rafferty A, Rafferty B, Scavarla, all those 3 buildings are going to be getting exterior paint jobs, and that's also being done through McClellan Park. They're paying for that through our lease negotiations that we're doing on our new leases. So as we redo those, they're actually going to be painting those up, making them well overdue for a new paint job on those. And then lastly, one of the projects we have going on is around the portables that we put over there by the theater. The north and south end of the portables is kind of uneven and the ground was kind of hard for the kids to be walking across, you know, safely. So we're taking the old grass out, regrading everything, making it more smooth and putting some new sod down in that area to kind of make it look better and be safe for the kids to walk across. And I think the next slide is questions. So it's kind of some projects that we're going on this summer and some things we have going on. You have any questions on those?
Yes, Mr. Turner. We have a question from Jack Turner.
Okay. Oh, got to unmute him.
Yes, please unmute. Jack, you ready?
All right. No, you may not have the answer to this, but you mentioned the water fountain at Epic, and I was wondering, do you know if we're going to have to disable all the water fountains?
That is what I've heard some districts are doing. Don't know how far we're into that yet, but I have heard that some districts will be cutting water off and just doing the water bottle fillers. But I think with our plans where we have sanitation going on, we'll be able to still use those, especially the outdoor ones, so that students can still have access to it.
Okay, thank you. Very good report. Appreciate it.
Excellent report. Any other board members? Questions or comments? Thank you, Jerry. As usual, we say how busy your department is, and we really, really, truly do appreciate all the work that you're doing with the staff that you have available. So thank you for this report. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys all have a good evening.
To you. Thank you.
All right. If you guys are all okay, I'll head out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for being here with us.
No problem. Have a good night.
All right. Be safe.
You too.
All right. And the next item on the study session will be state and local updates, school implications, what I had already started to get into.
Yes,
All
and
right.
I'm going to give you a brief update. It will not come close to answering all your questions or anyone else's questions because I do not have all the answers, but I just want to give you a few updates. As you may be aware, we continue to get breaking executive orders and changes to various plans. We're also monitoring all the plans that are being released by our surrounding counties and or districts, which not very many districts are sharing plans at this moment. Some county offices are giving general guidelines, but not a lot of set plans by districts. What we're hearing, I was able to attend the Hvac board meeting this week, as well as the Access Superintendents Council. And a lot of what's happening is not only do we not have clear guidance, and the guidance is somewhat different by county, by region, the interpretations are different. There's a lot of discussion by county soups, district soups, and others about what the language means. Does should mean I have to? Does may mean I have to? To the extent possible, what does that mean? And all the different plans use those different languages. As an example, we were going by some guidelines that were in what Sacramento County shared, which was saying that the Sacramento County was saying that in our county, they were going to suggest that temperatures be taken at home by the adults and the children, and that the schools not be responsible, except for CDC, CDHP, and others are saying we should either be taking at least the adults' temperatures, if not the students' temperature, that we have to be asking everybody every day a certain number of risk questions every day. So we are still trying to figure that out, okay? We are doing our best to figure out, one, what is best practice? What are the requirements? What will our insurance carrier believe is the right thing to do that would protect us? And then how do we realistically put it in place? So do know that we don't have all the answers. At this point, we have begun to order masks. In the middle of this, we were also told that the governor and CDE had I can do this, OCE, the office of, what is it? OEC. The Office of Emergency something, anyway. OEC has decided to give every county office PPE, except for no one knows how much PPE. No one knows who will get what PPE. No one knows when it will arrive, how many you'll have, or even if charters were included in the count. So there's just a lot of chaos, if I didn't make that clear. But meanwhile, we are doing our best to do what we can to prepare ourselves, Mr. Business, with some help from Dr. McCormick. Jerry Little has been supporting this as well. We've got some masks on order because we are going to be providing some fabric masks for our employees. We do have masks on order for students age 12 or older, and we are watching the guidelines to see if, based on the governor's newest executive order 2 days ago, if we now have to also provide masks for students under the age of 12. But we are also doing things like ordering touchless thermometers. We're providing for disposable masks for those that don't show up with a fabric mask. We're looking at processes, procedures, how to keep people safe. Today we had a long meeting with both Dr. McCormick and our HR department. We believe we have a really strong process that we are going to be able to share out with all of our central office staff who have been told that we are returning to the office on July 13th. That will include masks, temperature checking, risk analysis, hand washing, Clorox wipes, you name it. We've got a whole process figured out, and we'll share more of that with you when we have our next board meeting. But we continue to monitor all the safety guidelines that are changing. Also, you may be aware that late last week, maybe it was early this week, who knows, late last week, the legislature approved a budget. The legislature approved a budget without any negotiations with the governor, but they met their timeline, so they'll get paid. And then they began working with the governor, and some believe that was strategic in order to have leverage with him. The governor and the legislature, as of today, Jason, was that today that the agreement came?
Yes.
It all
Actually,
runs
as of
together.
yesterday.
As of yesterday afternoon, the governor and the legislature came to agreement on a budget. It was announced that they had an agreement, but no details were shared. Today, we begin to get small leaked information about what that agreement looks like. It will be codified in a budget bill that will include trailer language, okay? And some of what we're hearing is that there will be significant deferrals, for sure. 1.54 billion from the February apportionment will be paid in November. 2.38 billion from March, April, and May will be paid in October, September, and August. These are really significant deferrals that may cause ourselves and others to have to borrow, which costs money in and of itself. So we're monitoring that. Those deferrals could be much worse if we don't get the federal dollars that much of the budget is built on. So we will be hearing more, but at this point, large deferrals, no COLA, and while some are using the language, you were held harmless, this is far from a hold harmless budget, okay? It just means they are going to fund us at the 1920 level without a COLA and with a whole lot of other stipulations on it. And even that may change if we don't get the federal dollars and or if the tax receipts don't come in July as predicted. So there's a lot of unknown. There's, cautiously trying to be optimistic because it's not as bad as what the governor had announced in May, but there's just an awful lot of unknown. It does appear that the legislature and the governor have both agreed on the state retirement system buy down, which is a plus. And there is some language being discussed around ADA protections, a 1-year ADA protection based on your average from last year. Again, not much language around it other than that. There is also some understanding that distance learning is going to be allowed, but there will be significant rules placed on it. Okay. So some of those rules may be onerous for schools to follow because it is an outgrowth of what everybody has been reporting in the media, that many districts didn't do a good job with their distance learning. So they're saying that in order for you to do distance learning, you have to ensure that every student in distance learning has a device and connectivity. Everyone has a rigorous quality of curriculum. Special ed is provided, that there is a way to re-engage students if they don't engage within a certain number of days. And there appears to be some language about every student having to have a live interaction every day. Okay. Again, none of this is a for sure thing because it's all leaked information, but we will be monitoring that. Those things and others come into play in what Miss Lilly had asked, which is what are we doing? So what we have told every school, every classroom-based school, is you must prepare for 3 options. You must have a fully distance learning model. You must have some way, actually we really told them only 2 ways. You must have a fully distance learning model, and you must have a way to have your students on campus 5 days a week in a full classroom setting. But how they could arrive at their students being on the campus 5 days a week may be through a blended learning model, okay? So they are aware that they must create an option that allows for distance learning, full distance learning, at a higher even level of quality than what we had done before, and that they must be providing for a way for their students to be on campus 5 days a week with all possible safety precautions met. And that's the difficulty right now we're still working through. How do you fit all the same students on, making sure they're 6 feet apart? We don't have all of our solutions yet, but we have a whole lot of innovative thinkers trying to figure out how to use outside space, how to use cafeteria space, how to use conference rooms, how can we spread out people? The reason that we are doing this is, as you know, we have many parents who need their students on our campuses 5 days a week. They need our students at school, one, because our school is the best place for them to be educationally, but also it's the safest place for them to be. And many of our parents need to work. So we are doing our very best to work with our principals to ensure that we have a way for those students to be on campus 5 days a week in the fall. We have a fully distance learning option at every school campus because when we surveyed our parents, some 10 to 18% of them say they don't feel safe coming back to school physically, and they want a distance learning model. So we are going to provide at every school a way to do that. Of course, when you're talking about a SAVA, that's a little bit different than when you're talking about a COA elementary. SAVA is already a non-classroom based program. So their work will be, how do you have your CTE and other site-based offerings done in a safe way? How do you have your students on campus in a safe way, which is also very important, but it will not be that they are trying to create a fully classroom-based model at SAVA, of course, or at CCCS. So we are hard at work, even though the principals went off today. Very few of them actually totally will be off calendar. All of them know that they are monitoring. Many of them are also working with their summer school to ensure continuity of learning. And, you know, We are all both overwhelmed and inspired to do this and do this well on behalf of our students. So we will continue to keep the board updated, but at this moment, that is what is known.
Comments, any discussion, anything that you would like to share or ask from our superintendent? Seeing no hands. Madam Superintendent, thank you. I too have been trying to keep up with everything that's going on in terms of reading where the governor is, in terms of reading where the superintendents are telling us we should do this, that, and the other. And that was the purpose of my questioning. Where are we in terms of our thinking? Because we have no answers. All we can do is just think about the process and try to get there. So I do appreciate your continuing to look at this and answer my questions, which you did. Thank you.
And I just will say, we need to acknowledge that this is not easy on our principals or our school site staff. Trying to take care of your own social emotional well-being in a time of so much unknown is really hard. Trying to lead while you yourself are struggling with the uncertainty and feeling like you should have the answers is hard. People are pushing the principals, whether it's parents or staff members, to say, give me the answer. They don't have it and we don't have it. And that's adding a great deal of stress onto our employees' lives. And I just really want to affirm them for their work in this area. They've been doing a great job. And I know that later on, we're going to look at the budget with Aaron Thornsbury. But I will caution you that while I've shared a little bit of what might seem like good news, we're not sure that's true yet. And our budget is based on our last known frugal and fiscally responsible data. And we're going to stay on that trend as we always have. So
I think we understand that if we've been keeping up with the news and listening to everything that's come forth, we know that this is just the best information we have at this point. So we take it and try to move on with that. So I think that's understood by all of us. Thank you.
thank you.
And now we're at 5.3, GCC Virtual Maker Faire Spring 2020.
Well, you're going to like this presentation much better than you liked my presentation, because Michael's going to share some really great stuff that happened this spring with our students. So really want to remind you that this is Michael's last meeting with us as assistant superintendent as well. So it's nice that he gets to have the good news and the fun news to share. So Michael, thank you for having led this work in the virtual setting.
Yeah, and it should be much more fun than the budget report later too, right, Aaron? So our Maker Faire we did our first Maker Faire last year in the spring of 2019, and we did it at the Aerospace Academy or Aerospace Museum. Sorry, going way old school. And so the Maker Faire this year was scheduled for the first Friday in May as well, but as we know, we were not in school. And so definitely want to affirm a lot of people who helped get this off the ground, but what we did was a virtual Maker Faire. We sent out challenges by grade level, and then each student received a Google link that Christine McCormick made. So Chris helped make the Google form that they submitted it on. And they could either submit a video or a picture, and they had to describe what they made. And so in kindergarten through second grade, they were making something out of recycled materials, like an animal or something fun. In third through fifth grade, they were trying to make a boat that floated. And in the grades above that, actually third, fourth, fifth, and sixth were making a tower. So most of our participants came from the primary grade levels. Even middle school or high school had a challenge, but we didn't get any high schoolers to partake. But the elementary schools did a really good job. HLA had some entries, CCS had some entries, and GIS had some entries. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the slideshow pretty quickly, and then we'll send you all a link after the meeting so you can kind of go through it yourself and watch all the videos. So the first ones are from Community Collaborative Charter School. This is Alex, And this is a picture of him making his caterpillar. We didn't get the final product, but he showed us what he was making and how he was making it. This is Ayutida, and she made a pig, and she made it from plastic bottle, paper, hair, and bow ties. Jojo, this is a video that we're not going to watch, but he made a really neat bunny, and he describes it in his video. Margarita, she's made Superbird from a plastic bottle and craft feathers. You can see how creative she was with her recycled product. Actually, Jason, what slide were we supposed to just do number 3 or not? Oh, there it is. Chicken Little. You guys have to, hopefully the sound works on this video. It's super cute and very short.
This is Chicken Diddles. I made it out of tissue box and cardboard and tape.
There's his video. Let's see. This brother and sister made a polar bear with cereal boxes, cookie box, pillow stuffing, toilet paper, so that you could see they were very creative. And then, oh, we did have one from COA, but he didn't submit a photo. He did one called Mother's Day, so I did forget about him. GIS had the most entries, so we'll go through those, and there will be a video that we're going to watch. This is when she made a turtle. We had 2 boys in a row, one Artem and Artyom, they both made piggy banks, so the next one also a piggy bank.
Oh, it's cute.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Out of bottles. This one is a frog made with toilet paper rolls, green paint, and soda bottles. David T, he made a rabbit, or a hare, I guess he made, out of an empty bottle and some scissors and markers and glue. This is a cute one. It's a cat with construction paper and scissors and a can, I think. This is a neat one. It was a fish made with cardboard paper, plastic bottles, and glue. I really like the fish. Nice colors. Oh, this is the cyborg bunny made using clay and markers. Here, now don't start it yet, Jason. This video you have to watch. We're only gonna watch a minute of it because I think it's like 2 minutes long, but it is a very well produced video and it's a song and everything. So Jason's gonna play it for us. I don't think that's the one. There it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the song is about recycling. I drink a lot of water, I have a lot of bottles, I don't throw them away. I like to be creative, building custom toys. Now I can play. This is my plastic giraffe, recycle plastic giraffe. This is my plastic giraffe, I like it very much. This is my plastic giraffe, recycle plastic giraffe. This is my plastic giraffe, fantastic plastic.
All right, that's good, Jason.
Oh, that is cute.
Yeah, so I mean, this child has a music video produced on his Maker Faire. We'll go to the next one. This is a cat. He's not quite finished with it, but he used socks. Go ahead, Jason. This another bunny that was made with plastic spoons and toilet paper. And again, these are videos that you'll be able to watch later on. Sophia from GIS made an owl. Sonia made a bird and a cat using recycled paper tubes, and you can see she made a little tree. It's really, really cute. Svetlana, she made a giraffe. Giraffes were very popular this year. I don't know if there's a new Disney movie out with giraffes in it or something, but giraffes were very popular. Again, another giraffe from Svetlana. A zebra out of recycled materials, towel tube, glue, black marker, scissors, and googly eyes. And then here's a boat in the Build a Boat Challenge in grades 3-4. Keep going, Jason. Another boat, you can see they made out of bottles. Here's a neat one that he tried to float in his pool, both sinking and not sinking. Daniela made float boat with a barbecue stick, and I think with tinfoil. So just 2 ingredients. This is a cute one. This is the crew made with needles, yarn, cotton balls, and fabric. That's kind of a neat little one that she made. Isabella built, she's the only build a tower challenge, and she built out of marshmallows and those barbecue skewers. You can see she built a tower. And we're almost done, but we have one more video for you guys. This is a boat project. Max from GIS. This is a really good video. You got to watch this one, but we didn't have all the, no, we'll let them watch it in private. It's really cute though. Here are the ones from HLA. This is a really creative one from Amari. She made a bioluminescent jellyfish with jugs, garbage bags, paper streamers, and stars. And this is another video we're going to show you. It's only like 10 seconds long, but it's really cute. This is Matthew. He built a dinosaur volcano out of recycled materials. And our final one is Jaylene, and she built a boat that floated in her fountain in her backyard. So I think that's it, right, Jason? Yeah. So I want to thank Catherine Kano also from Christine's office. She helped put the slideshow together, she and Chris helped figure out the technology of the videos, getting them to play because you had to have permission. And then getting them up, and they're going to be on our GCC website, and also we'll post them to Facebook by the end of the week. So it was a nice way to have some Maker Faire this year, but obviously not as much as it would have been in person. So again, fun time for all the kids that did it.
It seemed like fun time. Thank you, Dr. McCormick, and thank you for taking the time, Michael, Dr. McCormick, for putting that together. It was quite interesting. Some of those little Maker Fairs are really cute.
Yeah,
Board
we'll send you the
members?
link so you can watch the video, all the video.
Okay. Anything from board members? Thank you so much. It's a lot good to see you. Thank you. All right. So with that, we are moving into the consent agenda items. And we have from 7:1 to 7:13. Adoptions of the minutes, personnel consent, purchases over 30,000, memorandum of understanding with YOLO and Epic, modification to travel conference resolution, which we approved last board meeting, GCC Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board Policy, GCC Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan, COVID-19 Operations Written Report. We also received those last board meeting. Amendments to lease Sierra Arden Church GIS, proposed lease amendment for COA elementary facilities, amendment to facilities lease agreement with San Juan and GIS, GCC Board Policy Athletic Competition, GCC Board Policy Extracurricular and Co-curricular Activities. These are the consent agenda items, and I will ask for a motion for the voting of the consent agenda items. I will entertain a motion. Mr. Turner? Jack?
I move approval.
Thank you. Jack Turner move approval. Bruce Mandrick?
I'll second.
Second. It has been moved in second. And now I will ask for discussions on any of the consent agenda items. Yes, Mr. Turner?
Yes, if you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On the athletic, dealing with the extracurricular athletic item, that appears to have been written long before this coronavirus hit. Are we
Okay.
going to?
Can I answer for you?
Did you finish your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Yes, Dr. Peterson.
we are, we were advised by the Department of Education that these two policies are necessary as a part of our federal program monitoring for Community Outreach Academy. So they are a compliance document. They are not being put in place in order to say that we are going to be having athletics at this time.
Okay.
They are in place to say when or if it is safe to once again do athletics, we will follow these compliance documents in those programs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I will now entertain the vote to approve or disapprove. So all in favor of accepting the consent agenda items, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Block, he's on mute. Mr. Block,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Mandrick,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
and Campbell, yes. So all of the consent agenda items have been unanimously approved. Thank you. And now we move to item 8, business. And the big one that we're just anxiously awaiting is 8-1, 2021 adopted budget. So Mr. Aaron, are you ready?
Yes. Good evening, board.
As Mr. Thornsberry is getting ready for this, I will just say I really want to affirm Aaron, who has been working very hard, as has his department. In particular, his director, Omira Arena, has been working very hard with him. And this has not been, you know, one of the easiest years with all the changes that have been happening. Plus, they have had, you know, a little bit of difficulty in meeting with every principal to try to make these budgets work within the constraints we have. So definitely want to affirm Aaron and his team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Good evening, board members. So we're here tonight to just present the 2021 adopted budget for us, Gateway Community Charters, and go to the next slide. So this budget is going to be based mostly on the assumptions from the governor's May revise. We will continuously, we're going to monitor the state budget adoption and the trailer bills that have come out, and just determine, you know, afterwards how that impacts our assumptions. You know, it's a very fluid kind of budget this year. You know, it was passed, and then there's additional trailer bills, and it could even change later on in the fall, depending on how some of the income tax receipts come in. The income tax filings were delayed until July for the state, and so you know, there's just a lot of things. So we're just going to be continuously monitoring the situation and providing changes as we go along. But we are required to provide an adopted budget to our authorizing districts and County Office of Education by June 30. So just some of the major assumptions that we have. The LCFF revenue, we are building our budget assuming, I'm sorry, lost the video there. We're building our budget assuming 0% COLA for the LCFF with a 7.92% deficit factor. The January budget was going to provide a 2.31% increase. So this is quite a change for us. Just to compare, the 2019-20 year was a 3.26% increase. So even before the pandemic hit, we were not going to, you know, enjoy as much of an increase as in 1920. And so to make matters worse, it's even, you know, a deficit. State relief for STRS and PERS rates. We have STRS going to be in 2021 16.15% of salaries, and in 21-22 16.02%. The state provided relief for 2 years. The rate was originally for STRS going to go up to 18.4% and in 2021, and then down to 18.1%. So we've got almost a 2% kind of relief on that, which is nice. And then PERS, kind of a similar situation. The rate was going to go up to 22.8%, but instead it's going to be 20.7%. And same for 21-22, we get a little bit of relief, close to about 2% relief on that. Okay, next slide. For special education funding, that was actually one of the winners in this budget. The May revise still, despite all of the financial problems, special education funding was set to was kept in the budget in the May revise, the increase, and it was going to be increased to $645 per ADA with a 3-year rolling average on the ADA. Our SELPA had recommended $619 per ADA, so that's what we budgeted. And that's still an $81 increase per ADA for special education. So it goes up from $538 to $619 per ADA. Elementary, one of the things that we're seeing this year is some relief from the federal government. It's called the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And that had already been announced by CDE, I think about a month ago. And we are getting a little over $1.3 million to help offset some of the state budget cuts and to help with, some of the added costs also with the pandemic, such as like distance learning or personal protective equipment, things like that. The ACES program was cut 15% by the state, unfortunately. This impacts COA, HLA, and GIS. And the SB 740 facilities grant has 0% COLA, and it was already oversubscribed going into this year. We used to get something around close to $1,200 per ADA, and that could be used to cover 75% of the rent. And then on top of that, building improvement costs up to that ceiling amount of almost $1,200 per ADA. But now there's not enough funding to provide for any other costs other than rent. And even they can't even make the full 75% of the rent amount in the grant anymore. So we are budgeting this at 63.75% of total rent for next year. One of the things that was included in the May revise, but we did not include in the GCC budget, is some additional CARES Act funding that was proposed. The CARES Act was split up into kind of 2 sections. One is called GEAR, and it was supposed to provide $1,900 per disabled student. And on both of these funding pots, no independent study charters or would be allowed under this funding, just classroom-based charters. So that would have made CCCS and SAVA not eligible. The other one was Coronavirus Relief Fund, and it was just supposed to be only school districts and charters, classroom-based charters that get concentration grant funding, and that would have been $735 per ADA. The funds had to be expended by December 31st on extending school year, additional academic services, learning supports, wraparound services. Not much detail was provided out of that. It was possibly supposed to be only supplemental, only on things that you can spend it on. And so And then there was also a dispute between the legislature and governor on how the funds were supposed to be distributed. The legislature wanted, and there was kind of an outcry of a lot of school districts that all school districts should get this funding, not just concentration grant districts. And you know, and you know what the funds can be used on. So we did not, you know, because of all this uncertainty surrounding it, and because it's possibly a supplemental type of program, we did not include it in our budget. So as more details come out on what was actually enacted in the budget surrounding these funds, we will, you know, we will go ahead and add that in later on and make a budget adjustment. P2ADA for, you know, it's the most significant driver of revenues. And just to compare 2019-20, we ended up with 4,734 ADA. We are budgeting for growth of 152.29 ADA. And you can see the changes for each of the schools. CCCS is dropping a little bit just because we are spinning off the La Familia site out of that charter. And then we have just most of the schools you know, we're trying to keep it kind of flat, keep it conservative. Saba, you know, there's been a lot of interest in Saba in the Thomas, and we've had a lot of growth even, you know, late in the year in 1920. So we added pretty aggressive amount there, 50 ADA. HLA, a lot of, you know, the grades, current enrollment going up a grade. We see a lot of growth, you know, 21 ADA there. And then Saba SCUSD also, you know, showing because of enrollment later in the year and what we're seeing in the trend, we added 85.89 ADA. Okay, next slide. This slide just shows the comparison of the 1920 estimated revenues to the budget. In total, our budgeted revenues are budgeted to go down 323,000. One of the largest drivers of this is the LCFF, of course, because of the decline, the 7.92% cut to that revenue. Federal revenue is increasing because of the ESSER funding and IDEA funds for special ed. Now that we have more schools are eligible for that IDEA funding, and some increases to the title grant carryover. Other state revenues are increasing, mostly from the Strong Workforce Program grant for Saba. They received a very large grant that is helping offset some of the declines in the state revenue in the other areas like ACES and lottery and other areas. Their local revenues are increasing because special education revenue, you know, as we talked about in the previous slide, is going up in the May revise. And we have 2 new schools joining the El Dorado County Charter SELPA, CCCS, and Futures. So we'll be seeing revenue come straight to us now instead of the sponsoring district. And this just shows revenues by school, a comparison from year to year. And you can see the largest decline is COA. Probably, I mean, they're the largest of our schools. And they were, you know, the LCFF funding and the SB 740 facilities funding impacted them more than, you know, some of the other schools that we're seeing. And then, so we've kind of already talked about these. This just kind of recaps the LCFF, the federal revenue, why it's changing, a little more detail on the other state revenues, some of the assumptions and changes there. So, Move on to the next slide. And then general fund expenses, we are increasing expenses by $196,000. Mostly it's the salaries. We have a 1.5% increase for all salaries. And we have movement, we assume movement up the steps for the employees. And so that is the big driver, or, it's a big increase there, as you can see. For certificate classified, that drives up the benefits as well. But services and other, we've cut a lot out, and a lot of services and other categories were cut out of the LCAPs. They were also, a part of the decreases from bringing our special ed services in-house from Twin Rivers Unified for CCCS and Futures, and also hiring more in-house personnel to serve special ed as well, created a decrease there. Capital outlay, that should actually be a negative there. It's a we actually decreased almost 3.7 million. And that's just because we are not budgeting for any new projects. These are just kind of a runoff of the old projects in 1920 that aren't finishing by June 30. So that is why that's decreasing. And the next slide. And then this is just the change in expenses, total expenses for each charter. And so we see that, COA, because their revenues are dropping so much, that's dropping over $1 million for their expenses. Futures is dropping quite a bit because they just had a large amount of capital expenditures in the prior year for the new the construction out at the site. And SAVA SCUSD, the expenditures are moving quite up just because of the enrollment is actually increasing, and they have the Strong Workforce Program grant, which is a major grant driving those expenditures up. So just recaps, salaries, 1.5% increase, column movement up. We also added positions for special education in schools with growing enrollment. The next slide. Benefits, this just shows you why the benefits are increasing the way they are. We have, STIRS, because of the added salaries, even though STIRS rate is dropping, the salaries are high enough to keep it going up. PERS, the rate is increasing. And then health benefits, we're assuming an increase of 6%. We don't know actually what our health insurance will come in at yet. The plan year starts in January, so we don't have the numbers yet, but we've conservatively budgeted for a 6% increase there. The other column is just a little bit of, we had stipends for internet service for people working remotely, and that was an other benefit, and that was a one-time benefit, so that we're not planning to continue, so that dropped. That's the reason for the negative 37,000 and other. Okay, then books and supplies, we are budgeting an increase GCC wide of 208,000 because of the SAVA schools and carryover of lottery balances. And then the next slide, services and other, this shows the detail of why services and others dropping $1.4 million. We have the big, one of the areas, insurance is increasing, unfortunately, because of just property insurance. The market is just going up. The costs are just going up just because of just wildfire disasters. You have on the East Coast hurricane disasters. Now you have coronavirus. And so it is driving the costs up quite a bit. We have also just some changes in the law, regarding sexual molestation And so that's really driving the market up and driving the insurance costs up. And but we have some decreases. Rent and repairs is decreasing 196,000. We, you just approved the new lease for COA that had some lower rent to start out with, starting in next year, and has 1 month of free rent as well for 3 years in that lease. So that caused some of the costs to decrease. And we had a one-time cost last year in that category, so that created a decrease. And then services and other, we talked about that, the LCAP, a lot of cuts in the LCAP in various areas to cut back on that. Oversight agency services and fees is another major area, just because of that's where we're taking the special ed. We're not paying those fees to Twin Rivers. Now we're paying them. Now that kind of turns into more personnel that we have in-house to serve those special ed students. And also that oversight fees will be dropping because of the LCFF dropping. So that's one of the assumptions there. Okay, the next slide. And I just already explained all of the areas here, why they're going up or down. So we can go to the next one. And then general fund capital outlay, that's budgeted just because we are just a runoff of the projects, and we're not planning on any new projects. And then this is just showing the fund balance, total fund balance of all the schools. So we began with, or we're assuming that we are going to begin with $24.6 million in fund balance. We're budgeting for a deficit of 1.7 million, and ending out with still pretty strong reserves of close to $23 million. The deficit is due to the spending down. We are spending down $374,000 of restricted grants, and the capital outlay projects still, with those running off from the prior year, is causing this deficit. If you were to remove the capital outlay and the restricted grants, we would have a surplus. Okay, and then the next slide, just to show and disclose the building fund. The building fund now only consists of the GIS modernization. Rancho Del Paso projects are officially completed and closed out by the OPSC. And so now we have just the revenue coming in and expenses going out for the modernization. So some of the risks going forward are, I think I mentioned the state income tax filings. Because that deadline was deferred to July, the state was somewhat blind in its assumptions for the budget. And when those filings are filed here in a few weeks and the numbers come in, it's possible that there could be a revised budget based on that. We have some risk of loss of enrollment in ADA to homeschooling because of the pandemic, to going to other charters that provide homeschooling or other programs, or migration out of the area. We could have a virus resurgence, and that would cause further lockdowns and harms to the economy. And we still have the STRS and PERS increases over the long term. Special education costs are now, we run the program now totally for all our schools. And so those costs, if we do get a low incidence student, that could really drive up the costs. And cash deferrals now. So we do have a risk of low cash supply or the need to borrow cash. So just to conclude, with the pandemic and certain economic impact, We feel this budget is very conservative and it balances the use of reserves and makes cuts to help with these challenging times. I mean, we could have made further, deeper cuts, but we thought, you know, we do still have a good level of reserves to help us kind of have a soft landing and not make such a drastic or draconian cut to our programs by using some of those reserves. And I just wanted to also thank the Director of Business Services and Budget Analyst for helping with putting this budget together. They did a lot of tremendous work to get this done. And so that is all. Is there any questions? I think, did you raise your hand, Jack?
Mute. Mr. Turner.
Aaron,
Okay.
can you hear me, Aaron? Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're good.
As usual, in particular, the assumptions you stated was completion after 15 years of the Rancho del Paso project as far as the capital construction there is concerned. I also appreciate you focusing on the growth or lack of growth in prime. Do you have there was some talk about the state, or any follow-up on that or any information?
Jack, I'm sorry, you were fading out and we did not quite hear the last question.
Is there any information from the state on holding us harmless next year as far as declining enrollment?
Yeah, the state just came out today and stated that they will be holding schools harmless in some way. We don't know the details of how they'll hold us harmless exactly, and what that means, you know, with regard to distance learning and versus, you know, being in the facility. But they have come out and stated they do plan to hold harmless on ADA.
So the language so far that has trickled out says that there is language included that the LEA's ADA will be based on the P2 reported at second apportionment period P2 for all school full months up till February. So what we don't know is, honestly, Jack, there have been some underhanded things in a recent trailer bell language where charters have not been treated at the same measure everyone else has. So right now we want to assume that we will be held harmless, which means the P2 that we reported when we closed our schools will be the P2 that will be our hold harmless for this year. I mean, that's my optimistic view.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comment? Bruce Mandrake.
I'm mute.
You're muted, yeah. Bruce.
Okay, there we are.
Yeah.
Two things. In past years where the state has failed to pass a budget by June 30th, or had a lot of trailers, school districts have had to actually re-approve a budget as opposed to just making adjustments to it. Is there any talk of that happening?
Nothing that I can see. How about you, Aaron?
Well, I know they're required to, I think, come out 45 days afterwards and revise revenues and assumptions based on that. That's for school districts. No, charters are not required to file that. But we'll, you know, we can do that for first interim, or we can even provide something in the interim, even another interim if we want to.
Okay, seeing no other hand.
Oh, Bruce still has a question.
Oh, good.
Bruce.
Just to follow up, you know, over the years I've seen and dealt with a lot of really difficult budget years. This one is, I think, particularly difficult because of the unknown factors. I mean, if you're going into a recession, there's a pretty good pattern of what's happened in the past. in this case, I mean, we're really flying blind, like the state is flying blind. And so I really want to give kudos to Aaron and his staff because I think what I've seen all along is a really good budgeting sense and really good information in spite of the fact that we really have a lot of unknowns out there. So really kudos to you and your staff for managing to work us through this whole thing.
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%, but before we go back into the accolades, I need to entertain a motion for the approval of the adopted budget for 2020-21. So, Mr. Turner?
I move approval.
Jack Turner, move approval. May I have a second? Bruce,
I'll move a second.
Move a second. Okay, the budget. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Block?
Yes.
Mandrick?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Campbell? Yes. So the budget has been adopted, approved as presented. And now, thank you and your staff, Aaron, because it's a lot of work. We realize, in particular Bruce, because he's been doing this for many years. And so we know what it takes in order to bring this budget to us, particularly at this time of year with so many unknowns. So we thank you for bringing a budget to us for approval today. And accolades, we affirm you and your staff for job well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
B2, line of credit with Wells Fargo Bank. Who will speak to that?
8.2 and 8.3. It's all Mr. Business tonight.
Okay, so we got 8.2 line of credit with Wells Fargo Bank. And you want to do that one first before we go into B3? Yes.
Yeah. So this item is to renew our line of credit and even extend it to a higher amount. The line of credit that we had with Wells Fargo did expire on June 10. And so this item will increase it from $2 million to $3 million. And just the interest rate is a low rate. It's variable. It is 1% below the bank's prime rate. So right now that would currently be 3.25. The bank's prime rate is currently 3.25%. So it would be 2.25% right now on any amount borrowed. Anything that we borrow, the total amount would be due almost 3 years from now, June 10th. Accrued interest is due every month on the line of credit if we use it. And given the cash deferrals and everything, that's why I wanted to. We thought it would be good to increase it to 3 million. And because I think the GCC has grown over time, we've had it at 2 million for many years now. And so I think it's time to go up to 3 million. And it's something that we try to use as a last resort because it does cost money. So we will only use it as a last resort, and in the event that we need operating cash, in between deferrals, or if we have, if one of the charters becomes, and sometimes our oversight agencies don't like to see us borrowing from other charters. So if we needed to do that.
Okay. All right, board members, any other questions? Seeing no hands, I will entertain a motion for approval of line of credit with Wells Fargo Bank. Mr. Anderson, Mark.
So moved.
So move. Do I see a second? I will need a second.
Second.
Bruce Mantrick. Did I hear you? Second? Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Did I hear? Oh, right. All right. I will call roll call. Anderson?
Yes.
Block?
Yes.
Mandrick?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Campbell, yes. The line of credit, Wells Fargo, has been unanimously approved. And now we go to B3, purchases over 30,000 professional development services. I hear somebody, I'm not sure. Sound like a bird.
So we're on item 8.3, which is
Yes.
the addendum item,
Right,
which
the
is
addendum item.
regarding the purchases over 30,000 that we brought as an addendum, Mr. Business.
Yes.
Professional
And
development services.
so these are, the flip-in group for capturing kids' hearts trainings throughout the entire GCC, 72,500. We have LTL 360, which is leadership and instructional coaching. That's Wendy York as the president, who used to be with Innovate Ed. So it's continuing that work that we've been doing from last year and the year before, and future management systems continuing again with that work of 69,250 across the schools.
Okay, questions, board members? Yes, Mr. Turner, Jack.
You're on mute again.
He's muted.
And
Okay,
I'm
Jack.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I love this process. Anyway, just
Can't hear you.
is this coming out of our general fund?
No, it's coming out of the supplemental and concentration funds, Title II funds, combination of those.
Is this the only thing I'm thinking of after your budget presentation? I'm off for a month until we find out more information in July, unless there's some reason we have to do it at this meeting. If it's
Yes, if I could please justify. So the Flippin group is our Capturing Kids Hearts work, which is a key part of how we became one of 6 national showcase districts. So in order to hold the dates that we have for training, we have to approve the contract. The same with the LTL 360. All of the work within these 2 contracts can either happen in person if possible, or could happen through a distance learning Zoom world, or could be canceled and not paid for. But none of the providers is able to make their plans to support us without these contracts. All the contracts have been discussed with each principal in terms of their commitment and desire to move forward with these key priorities to support the continued excellence of academic and social emotional outcomes for our students. So it is something that we're committed to. Even if there are other financial constraints, I think we would say that the principals and cabinet are committed to this work, even if it means more deficit spending to allow them to happen.
Jack, does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I think in the future that if the enrollment is an issue, I think there are some of these programs we're going to have to look at. I've always supported it.
Yeah. Well, let me assure you, we are in the same place. So cabinet has also had very tough discussions to say, and the contracts you see in front of you right now are scaled down from what was proposed. And I have told them, just as you're saying, that they can expect that next year they will not be spending this much next year, because next year, in terms of a multi-year, will look worse than this year in terms of the recession that we're facing. So I am on the same page as you are, Jack.
And thank you, Jack, for bringing that forward to make sure that we're all on the same page and know what we're to look for. So, okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion for professional development services purchases over 30,000. Do I see a hand? Yes, Bruce?
I'll move approval.
Move approval. May I have a second? Jack?
I second.
All right, it has been moved in second. And now I call for the vote. Anderson? You're still muted. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Block?
Yes.
Okay. Mandrick?
Yes.
Turner? Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Okay, Campbell, yes. Unanimously approved professional development services. And now we move to personnel. Item 12.1, employment agreement, GCC cabinet members. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, these are, as you will remember, our 3 cabinet positions. So the only contracts that we have are for cabinet and myself. I am in a different time frame than our cabinet are, but what you have in front of you are our 3 cabinet members' contracts for this year. Our chief business official and our deputy superintendent are receiving the same 1.5% increase that staff are receiving. Dr. McCormick, as a person who moved from a director to an assistant superintendent role with no increase, is getting a larger bump to bring her up into the assistant superintendent salary range. And those are 1-year agreements that you have before you today.
And I have read the agreements, and I now will entertain a motion. Yes, Jack. Mr. Turner?
I move approval.
Move approval. Mark, Mr. Anderson?
Second.
Second. Other discussions? Any more discussions from anyone? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Anderson?
Yes.
Block?
Yes.
Mandrick?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Campbell, yes. So the employment agreements for cabinet has been unanimously approved as requested. And so that brings us down to board comments.
Lily.
Yes, Mark.
I got a chance to actually attend the SAVA virtual graduation. I just wanted to compliment, and I've already extended my compliments to Maury and his entire team because they did an outstanding job under the circumstances. And I think I was very impressed with the students that made comments. There was a section where they were thanking their family and friends, but they spent a lot of time talking about their teachers and how significant those teachers were in helping them, especially in these challenging times. So I just think they did an outstanding job, and I wasn't able to go to any of the other virtual graduations, but I'm sure they were just as well done.
Thank you, Mark. I didn't make any of them. I sent a speech to them approving them, but I didn't make any of the graduation. And it really felt badly that we could not be there with them as we usually are every year. Any other board comments? Did we all? Yes, Bruce, Mr. Mandrick.
I just wanted to thank Michael for his service
Yes.
to GCC. It's been really nice having you here and really appreciate the work you've done. I do wish you the very best. I think somebody's getting a good deal. So enjoy. You're heading to Foothills, right?
Yes, Placerville.
Placerville.
County. So thank you very much, Bruce.
Be a little cooler up there. So congratulations and do a good job up there.
Thank you, Bruce.
I did tell him he's supposed to give me all the credit for having grown him across the last 8 years, but somehow he just kind of smiled at me like that wasn't going to be the way it worked. But
Oh, that's true, Cindy.
I agree with you. Thank you, Bruce, for that. And that was on my agenda to tell Michael how much we're going to miss him. I miss that smile.
Yeah.
I'll be seeing you. I hope I will continue to see you at AXA events. Sometimes you and I might have been the only ones there, but we were there. So I really appreciate your support in that area, and please continue to keep it up. Don't forget us. Don't leave. Yeah.
I would say to you that we cabinet took Michael out to lunch this week, and we wore our masks. We washed our hands, but we are hoping that in the fall, if the world allows, that we would have some sort of maybe evening event where staff is able to do a better job of wishing him the best and letting him know that he's missed. But we have been trying to find ways to do that in our virtual world. But know that in the fall, if we're able to, we will create something where we're able to look him in the eye and say goodbye.
I will continue with my request that one of these days I can host you guys, the board members and cabinets here at my house for a little get together. So maybe in the fall, that will be one of the things that we will try to do, because I still want to do that as your president. So hopefully that will take place. And again, I want to thank each of you, the ones who did reports today, for bringing us information, Aaron for the budget, Michael for the Makers Faire. To all of you and to my board members, I don't know what I would do without you. Thank you for being here each week. And now, announcement of the next board meeting.
Let's talk about that. So we have 2 dates in July, but the next one in July, and Blythe, what is the date of the first one that we believe we're going to cancel?
That one's July 14th.
Okay, so July 14th, we really, most all of staff is out the week of July 4th and the week after that. So that would mean that we were back one day and then we're having a board meeting. So it is our thought that you might also enjoy having a July meeting canceled, and that we could bring all of our July business to the following board meeting, which is Blythe, what? July 20 something.
20 something.
14 plus 14 is it the 28th?
All right, it's the 28th, yeah.
28th, okay. So it is at the board's pleasure that we would decide here to cancel the July 14th and hold the July 28th, if that is the board's wish.
It is my wish, because I will be trying to take my grandson back to Southern California at that time. Board members, Mr. Turner, are you in agreement to cancel that?
No, yeah, you canceled the meeting. Do we have any update on the Brown Act?
Right now, yeah, the Brown Act, we did some research because we thought it was going away with some of the other flexibility. But basically, the Brown Act executive order is worded in such a way that as long as there are still COVID restrictions, we're allowed to continue in the manner that we currently are.
Okay.
We're going to keep monitoring that. But right now, we're going to assume that we can continue to do some board meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Lily.
So it's okay for cancellation on the 14th with you? Jack?
He said
Mark?
yes already to the 14th.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm fine with the 14th cancel, but I'm unfortunately not going to be around on the 28th.
Okay.
I saw another date on the 23rd, but maybe that was the foundation meeting.
Yeah, that's foundation.
Yeah.
So right now we will be, not while we are at this point, but we'll make sure and speak with everyone, make sure we have a quorum with Mark being out for the 28th. But I'm assuming we'll be able to get 3 of you on the 28th.
Yeah. Everybody's okay with everything else?
Well, I'll cancel my trip on the cruise ship, so I'll be ready.
All right, they canceled your trip. Okay, you'll be there. Well, my only thing I have is taking my grandson, who's going to be with me for a couple of weeks, taking him home and shouting, probably. So, with nothing else for the board comments or for the good of the organization, I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Can I have a second? Second. Turner. Thank you. It's been moved in second. Any oppositions? Hearing none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Happy 4th of July.